Well, first, policy choice. The policy choices that we make matter, like Paul Collier was arguing. But even if you made the best policy choices, as the Nigerian experience teaches us, the policy choices that are preferred make you make some progress. As you are making that progress, weak institutions push you back. And so Nigeria has become a classic recursive economy. 2 steps forwards, 4 steps backwards. In fact, if you look at the Nigerian current experience, I mean, those of you who are old enough or who have done some research will know that everything Nigeria is going through right now is a repeat of what Nigeria went through between 1980 and 1985. Exactly. Something is wrong where the people cannot learn. See, Germany had a central bank before the European banking system was integrated, called the Bundesbank. And the Bundesbank was pathologically obsessed with keeping inflation down. And this was because of the hyperinflation that Germany experienced during the Weimar Republic. And their obsession with making sure that they don't repeat that experience made their central bank ordered that way. But strangely, we keep repeating our experience. And this is because our institutions are weak. So institution building is a critical part of the challenge of nation building for us. And if we get enough time, we'll speak to that some. Human capital is critical for economic development. We live in the knowledge age. Unless people are well educated, you will not be able to make progress happen. If people are well educated, you have the right skills, and my favorite joke everywhere is that when I come in, I look at the tiling on the floor. If the lines are straight, I know some Togolese and Ghanaians have been brought to work. If they are not straight, I know that my brothers went to work. I was listening to Pius earlier talk about the shower in his hotel room in Abuja. That's part of that whole thing. So human capital, developing human capital is very critical. Entrepreneurship, the process of creative destruction. How do you do something that is superior to what you had yesterday, creatively destroying yesterday's progress? I don't have enough time to talk enough about this subject, but entrepreneurship is essential in wealth creation. And if we're going to grow out of the challenges that we face today, if we're going to provide jobs, millions of jobs that are needed by the young people of this country to claim their dignity as human persons, we're going to have to understand entrepreneurship. We're going to have to essentially create value machines in the way our people think. But governing all of this are values, and I'll speak in some details to a few values, because values shape human progress. Without the right values, you cannot make progress. There's a big debate that's been going on that I'll come to between importance of institutions versus importance of culture in what determines how people make progress. And I have a perspective that is quite different from somebody whose work I respect very much, called Hernando de Soto, a Peruvian economist who's written a remarkable book essentially about capital. But I will come to that in a few minutes. But culture is central, really central to human progress. Indeed, a couple of years ago, there was a colloquium at Harvard about how values shape human progress. Now, this colloquium was actually based on a profound statement made by a former Harvard professor, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who went on to become a politician. He served in both the Nixon and Ford administrations, and later became a senator from New York. He was in fact replaced by Hillary Rodham Clinton in the US Senate from that seat in New York. And this profound statement basically says that the central conservative truth is that it is not politics that is responsible for the progress of a society, but culture. But the central liberal truth is that politics can change a culture and save it from itself. And the Singapore story is giving us a classic example of how one man changed the values of a society, and changing the values of that society took it in one generation. One generation which started out with him breaking down and weeping when Singapore was ejected from the Malaysia Federation in 1965, because Singapore was a country with no resources. The only thing it had approaching a resource was a natural untrue port. But in one generation, that country would become the biggest collection of billionaires on the planet Earth. And how Lee Kuan Yew changed the values of the people of Singapore and enabled that to happen is the big illustration of the fact that truly the liberal mind is that you can take, through politics, a culture, change it, and save it from itself. This is why what we are going through today in Nigeria is a fight for the soul of our country. If we don't change the culture of this country, we will prevent progress. That is why the young people of this country must understand that progress is about our values. Values shape human progress. But who shapes culture? Leaders shape culture. If there's anything that leaders do, and when I see people get very excited, this governor has tarred roads, I realize how little they understand about how progress comes. Because you see, when I was leaving to go to graduate school, with all the money that came into our country, where the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway was going up, Lagos-Shagamu, Benin Expressway was going up, came back from grad school in 1982, and I traveled with a friend who was driving, and we went toll gate to toll gate. Lagos, Benin, 2 hours, 40 minutes flat. A couple of years later, it took some people 2 days on the same road to go from Lagos to Benin. So, tarring roads do not progress make. What makes progress is shaping the values of people, the minds of people, so that this road won't start. You know that this will happen to it every year. You've got to do this to expand it, you've got to do this to fix it, and your budget process essentially incorporates this. What happened to Nigeria essentially is that all those roads became a pure waste after a few years because the leaders tarred roads, but they didn't change culture. This is the difference between what happened to us and what happened in Singapore. And the point is that institutions are important, and values are important. Some economists discovered institutions very late. If you read most economists, they did not, part of the challenge for a long time in the struggle for development economics is that they missed the role of institutions. But the economists have come of age in understanding of the role of institutions and economic performance. Thanks, I think, significantly to the work of an American economic historian called Douglas North, who won the Nobel Prize in Economics later, wrote a book in 1990 titled Institutions, Institutional Change and Economic Performance. It shows the importance of institutions in setting boundaries to conduct. It is these boundaries that reduce uncertainty, and when uncertainty is reduced, economic intercourse can be engaged. When President Barack Obama gave this speech, his first speech in Africa as President of the United States, and said that what Africa needs is strong institutions and not strong men, he was coming back to that very important point. Because economic engagement, now the challenges we're facing right now, are things okay in Nigerian economy? Is there uncertainty? Are policies changing? Come from that failure to understand that what institutions do is set boundaries. When boundaries are set, people can then anticipate what to do. They can then go into economic interaction. When people are not sure of outcome, not perfect, when people don't have a sense for the way outcomes may be, they either don't engage in economic transactions, or if they engage, they will hedge in a certain manner the risks that they are taking. And when you begin to hedge, costs go up. Those transaction costs will mean that your economy will be uncompetitive. And trading will go to those countries that are more competitive. I'll give you a small example. I worked in manufacturing in this country, At the time when the typical cycle for anybody producing in Nigeria was nearly 1 year, even when you are a subsidiary of a multinational, the uncertainties in being paid, lines of credit is shrinking because of the mistakes we made in that 82, 83, 84 era were such that your cycle, you needed money for like 1 year, you borrow the money or get it, go and place it in one bank, then get the foreign exchange. By the time you get foreign exchange, LCs can be opened for you at the time. It is only when your LC is sitting on the desk of the manufacturer, even though it's your parent's company, they then begin to program you into their manufacture of those components. Then they ship. By the time you finish and sell, almost 1 year. The person in Ghana gets 90-day credit, so he can sell before he pays. But you, 1 year. There is no way you're going to be able to compete with that person in that environment. So institutions help to reduce uncertainty. And I give a very small example. I was speaking at a full gospel meeting in Ikeja many years ago, and somebody came to me afterwards. He had started a business making a sorghum-based meal. And he bought equipment from a multinational company that imported it. And there was a broken part. And he needed that part quickly. He had borrowed money, was paying interest already. He wrote to the company in the UK that manufactured the equipment and asked for an invoice so he could open an LC and pay. He didn't get a reply. He wrote again, DHL, didn't get a reply. After about several months of writing and DHL letters, he got on the plane, flew to the UK, went to the place. Look, I've been looking for this part. They said it's available. He said, but I've been writing you. He said, no, anybody who writes us will reply. He said, no, I've sent several letters. I said, oh, where did you send letter from? He said, from Nigeria. I said, oh, sorry. In this company, as a policy, we don't open letters from Nigeria. You get a letter from Nigeria, you just shred it. So you can joke about 419. Because the institutions are weak in containing 419, there's crime everywhere, there's 419 everywhere, but they know that they will go after them if it was certain countries. In Nigeria, they will largely get away with it. It has translated in transaction costs for this person to a manner in which he will not be able to compete if the same thing were produced in Ghana, say.